Our Bible reading is Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 to 27. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions." Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourself out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country. Father, thank you for your amazing word.
It's better together. And the first overhead that I've got has that as its title. There was a mega team of horses that set a world record. It was called the Good Old Days Festival in New South Wales. 62 horses were joined together, as you can see in the photo, and the four owners, the horses were Clydesdales and Suffolk, Punch and Shire horses. They were pulling an antique Bennett wagon, and it had 6 tons of wool on it. And the length of the horses in the cart made up 80 metres. And they drove around a huge big oval area, and they did that twice, so that they broke a world record. Seems to me that's a pretty good picture of what it is to have a horse, not only have horses, but to have a church. All those 62 horses were directed from the one man sitting up on the cart, saying, "Giddy up," or whatever they say. And they all started off in in order and work beautifully, all directed from just one voice way back there and so on. And it seemed like to me that's a good picture of a church. A whole lot of people together, all working symmetrically under the one voice. What do you reckon the advantages are in working together?
Go the same way.
You go the same way, yeah? Well, sorry?
Support each other.
Support each other, yeah. Encourage each other, yeah. Any other?
The burden is shared.
The burden is shared, yeah. You can do far more than what you could do on your own. Anyone else? You're probably more efficient. You can cope with varying demands, perhaps. If one is hurt or injured, the others can make up for that. You can, if we're talking about churches, so you can share ideas, more innovation, perhaps a greater sense of community. And there's probably a whole heap of other things along those sort of lines that as a church we can do a whole lot better than what we could do if we were just on our own in the community. If we can go to the next overhead, thanks. Moses had taken his people through the Red Sea after leaving Egypt, and they were out in the desert and struggling with the heat and the conditions, struggling with food. They were getting manna in the morning and being supported by God by that. Moses was in charge of all these thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out in a desert, and he alone was in charge. And his wife and two boys had been living with the father-in-law away from all of what happened in Egypt, and Jethro and his wife decided that they'd come and visit him and see how he's going. And of course they had a great family get together, but on the next day Moses set about doing his usual role. The next day Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. And Jethro said to Moses, "What are you doing? What is this that you're doing to the people? Why do you alone sit as a judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" I've done a structure. I guess Moses had been in Egypt and he had seen how Pharaoh had operated. Pharaoh had controlled his nation and so on, a bit of a dictatorship, and so he's in charge of all these people, and so he perhaps adopts the same sort of role. So he does judging all of the things that used to happen for his time. And I guess the disadvantages of this are many. It all hangs on the leader. It's stressful. It's lonely. It's exhausting. And it's frustrating for the people because, next overhead if we could, instead of being like a team of horses trying to pull the wheelbarrows by himself, and in this instance, trying to juggle, you can imagine the first sorcerer is the people he's seen, And the second source are the people who are waiting to see him. The third sorcerer is the people lined up outside, and perhaps the fourth one down there is his wife and family waiting to see him when he gets home, if he ever gets home. Moses' leadership styles, because the people come to me, he says, in response to Jethro, to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and laws. I imagine that Moses was doing it in this way because that's how he'd seen it done before. That's how he thought it needed to be done. He had a special relationship with God. Only he could lead the people as they needed to be led. Moses had got the people out of Egypt. It was his responsibility to make sure that they were able to stay together and stay well. And I guess that applies to a church. It applies to a family, our families, to a job, a role that we might have, that we feel like we're the ones that are responsible. We have to do it, and we have to do it all. It's like saucers and plates. We're trying to hold a whole lot of things together, and if we're not careful, it falls apart and we lose the lot. If we can go to the next overhead. I've called this the great switcheroo for Moses in leading Israel. The passage goes this way. You must be, Jethro says his advice, you must be the people's representative before God and bring their dispute to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions and show them the way that they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands and hundreds, and so on. There's a whole change in the way in which Moses was to think. Instead of him being up on top in control and everything was depending on him, Moses is down the bottom being a coach. Rather than being a king and being one in authority, he's a coach who's on the ground working with people, helping them, working with them, having other people do things for him. So that he's not doing all of the judging and all of the administration, all the things that had to be done. He had officials who were able to do those sort of, to take on the major part of the responsibility, the normal day-to-day sort of stuff. A total different mindset. And I've called it a switcheroo. Moses is the coach. God is the boss. God's the boss. Moses, in fact, is a servant of the people, not the boss. Totally different to the way our world structures and politics in our world. We can go to the next overhead, thank you. Moses' leadership style can be applied to the church. When I started as a young pastor, 26 years old at Belmont Highton as the sole pastor of the church, pretty much a picture of what happened with me. Some of those things are kind of out of kilter on the screen. I'm not sure why that's happened. But as the pastor, I would do 2 messages on a Sunday, morning and evening, 11 o'clock and 7 o'clock at night. We'd have a Bible study during the week, and I would do that. I would lead worship in the church services. I would do all of the welcoming in the church. I'd be at the door afterwards, greeting people and chatting to them. I would do all the visiting. If there was outreach happening, it was dependent on me organising it or doing it myself personally. Val, you would have experienced similar experiences, I would imagine. And the church basically did the administration, looking after the property, looking after the money, all of that sort of thing. But I was expected to do all the ministry, to teach at RI. Now, I'd taught, when I was at Bible college, I taught at Caulfield Tech, and I'd had a 5th grade of boys to teach RI to, and it wasn't a good experience for me. and I decided I wasn't going to teach RI at school. That wasn't my field. But fortunately, Brigitte put her hand up and she filled in for me. And they expected Brigitte, as the pastor's wife, to lead the ladies group as well. So that, the pastoral team, husband and wife, basically did everything. And the congregation just received it. I'm very, very grateful and helpful and all that sort of thing, but that's how it was. And it seems to me that it's not a very effective way of doing things. The result was that after about 5 years, I left the ministry. It had that kind of effect. Like Moses, I wore out. I made lots of mistakes. I was doing things that I wasn't gifted in. Thank goodness they didn't ask me to sing in the choir. I deprived the congregation of the opportunity of exploring their gifting and doing what God was calling them to do. And the result was that as a church we had restricted growth. A little story, and I think it kind of is a little bit a description of the sort of way things happen. The lion was proud of being king of the jungle. He decided to check out the animals' feelings for him. He didn't bother with the smaller animals and went straight to the important ones. The lion said to the bear, "I'm the king of the jungle." The bear, "Of course you are." The lion turned to the tiger and said, "I'm the king of the jungle." And the tiger said, "Everyone knows that you are, O mighty lion." And the lion said to the elephant, "I'm the king of the jungle." And the elephant grabbed the lion, rolled him over 6 times, slammed him into a tree, pounded him on the ground, dunked him in a nearby lake, threw him onto the shore. The lion, beaten, battered and bruised, struggled to his feet, looked at the elephant through sad and sore eyes and said, "Look, just because you don't know the answer is no reason you have to be mean about it." A good illustration, I think, of how it all works. If we can go to the next overhead, thanks. I left the ministry in my early 30s and worked for the disability organisations in management. I served in churches as a deacon, as an elder for 10 years. And I learned the lesson that I'm trying to get across today, that Jethro brought to Moses. The great switcheroo in the church. Moses had to do a great turnaround in the way he approached things. And this is picked up in the words of Jethro. You must be the people's representative before God. Praying for people. Asking God's blessing on them. Not telling them what to do, but praying for them, taking them to God. Teach them his decrees and instructions and show them the way that they are to live. So it's not only teaching, but the pastor, the leader, is the one who shows and lives out the message so that it becomes real for people. And then select capable men to take on other roles within the church. And that's the picture there. The pastor is no longer the leader on top, but the pastor is the coach, the servant, who is guiding and encouraging and supporting people in the church. So that people are sharing in the preaching. We have a team of people who are preaching in our church. People are sharing in the leading of worship. People are sharing in all aspects of the life of the church, because God has gifted you in particular ways. And God wants you to use those gifts and those abilities to enable others to come to know Him. So in preaching, in worship, in welcoming, in visiting, in outreach and administration, in every area of the church's life. If a church operates in this way, it becomes a welcoming church. It's a church which is effervescent, which is alive, where people feel that they are loved and where they're wanted. In 10 years in management in the disability sector, I discovered it was better to work in teams. If we can go to the next overhead, thank you. Some of these things didn't quite work out when I reduced it. I think that's part of the problem in size. I also learnt that women are capable of leadership and are gifted from God for ministry. That's something that Val was sharing with us just a couple of weeks ago. A welcoming church is one where Jesus appoints and equips His people for service. So the pastor again is the coach, and the congregation are the people who do the work. So it's kind of reverses it. And it's brought out in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11 and 12, which Sue read to us before. So Christ Himself gave apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers in the church. So it isn't just a pastor, but it is a whole group of people working in the church, gifted in particular areas and working in those areas. The prophets are those who share what God is saying to the church today. The evangelists are out doing Alpha and working with people doing Alpha. The teachers are part of our home groups, part of our ministry team. The pastors are the ones who are helping to visit at Estia or visit other people in the community. Moses was a one-man band. The church is a band of people playing different instruments but playing together in harmony. Does that make sense? It takes practice, it takes working at for this to happen. And I believe it's happening within our own church. That it's not just me that's the pastor, but each of you have a role and a purpose in your lives. I counted through the number of people who were involved in today's service. There were a couple of people that haven't turned up so that they haven't been involved, but I counted out of an average of about 46 people who are regular at our church. There were about 19 who are helping today in some aspect of our church service. That's nearly half. That's incredible. The church is a factory for producing men and women in the image of Jesus. We're here together to bring people towards God, to help them. And we do it together, and we love doing what we love doing. And God has called us. If we can go to the next overhead, thank you. A welcoming church is one that is held together by Jesus. The passage says, the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. He's before all things, and in him holds things together. And he is the head of the body, the church. For God pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile himself in all things. And the key thing there is that Jesus is in charge of this church. It's a little bit dangerous for Baptists. We're democratic. We meet together and make decisions about the church. But that's not the picture here. The picture is us meeting together and praying to Jesus and asking him to direct us in the decisions that we are confronting, and to direct us. Jesus is the head of our church. That's a picture of a healthy church. It's a welcoming church. It's a church which is happy because they've been fulfilled. They've been led by Jesus. He's the one in control. And they are doing work that he has called them. And the passage goes on, next overhead, then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. A church which has got bitterness, arguments, contention, people trying to assert themselves, is not a happy church. It's a church where people want to stay away from and don't want to be a part of it. It's like being a storm in a sea or a storm out in the bush. Stuff happening, flying all around us, a dangerous place to be. And a church can be like that. This is the structure of a welcoming church. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Jesus is the head. The pastors and the leaders are the coaches, the ligaments supporting the whole structure, and the congregation grows in love. A church like this will grow. People will want to be part of it. Can we go to the final overhead, if we may? It's better together. Where are you in this team? How to drive a team of horses. One person I set up on the wagon, directing the whole lot. That one person is, if you think of it in terms of the team, is Jesus. He's directing. As a pastor, I'm the footman or whatever it is, the groomsman or whatever it is, helping to care for the horses and so on. So that's the picture. I'm not the boss. The leadership group is not the boss. Jesus is the boss. We need to look to him to guide us and direct us. Just an interesting thought about the welcoming church. Research shows that when a variety of lay people as well as the minister are involved, it makes greater impact. Dr. Kolb says this: the basic finding is summed up in the 36-hour principle. When lay people visit the home of a first-time worshipper within 36 hours, 85% of them will return to church next Sunday. Isn't that incredible? If the pastor does that same visit within 32 hours, only half of them will turn up. So it's far more effective for people in the congregation to go and visit than what it is for the pastor, because he's just expected to do that. I wanted to get across to you this morning that as a church we can only be a happy church, a friendly church, a welcoming church, if we have our structure together right. Jesus is the voice up on the wagon with the reins in his hands and the directions. What? Stop. Giddy up. Go. He's the one who speaks to us and directs us as a church fellowship. Does that make sense? I'm just the groomsman. The leaders in the church are just the groomsmen, helping and working with it and adjusting. Jesus is the one directing our church. Our church is a restoration hub. And we're seeing people come to know Jesus and follow him as a church.